Eternity Wars is a tabletop board game based off of real-time strategy video games. In this video, we will discuss how to play on the battle map. When an army moves into a province controlled by an opposing player on the world map, an assault is declared and the battle is fought on the battle map. The battle map is divided up into zones. Building zones are located at the ends of the battle map, and they are where any building participating in combat is placed. This is also where units being garrisoned in buildings are placed. If a building zone is not occupied by a building, then any unit may move into a building zone. However, no unit may ever be deployed in a building zone unless for garrisoning purposes. Front and rear zones are located in front of the building zones and behind the neutral zones. Players may deploy units into these zones. Front and rear flank zones are located to the left and right of the front and rear zones. Any unit may move into a flank zone, but units may not be deployed into these zones unless special conditions are met. Neutral zones are located in the middle of the map and next to the building zones. Any unit may move into a neutral zone, but no units may be deployed into these zones. The dead zone is located on the right edge of the map and is where units who have been destroyed in combat are placed. Units may not move into the dead zone. The dead zone is emptied after each battle. The afterlife zone is located on the left edge of the map and is where cards that are considered as removed from the game are placed. Units may not move into the afterlife zone. And just like the dead zone, the afterlife zone is emptied after each battle. The goal of each battle is total annihilation, and when a player has destroyed all enemy units and buildings on the battle map, they have won the battle. It is important to maintain a unit presence on the battle map at all times, because if a player has no units or buildings on the battle map, but still has units in their reserve hand, they are still considered to be defeated and have lost the battle. If neither player takes any damage to their units or buildings for a full 10 turns in a row, then the battle is considered a draw. The attacking player then moves any remaining units back to their original province, and the defending player keeps any remaining units on the province they were defending. Players take one of two roles when conducting a battle on the battle map: attacker or defender. The player initiating an assault on a province is considered the attacker. The attacker always deploys and moves his or her units first. The player whose province is being assaulted is considered the defender. The defender always deploys and moves second. There are 4 main turn phases when playing on the battle map. The phases are the deployment phase, the maneuver phase, the attack phase, and the final phase. Like on the world map, players progress through the phases together and conduct the individual phases one after the other. For example, each player deploys their units during the deployment phase, but the attacking player deploys units first, followed by the defending player. Once both players have deployed their units, they move on to the maneuver phase together, and so forth. The first phase is the deployment phase. During the deployment phase, players may take units from their reserve hand and place them on the battle map. If the province being assaulted has any buildings located on it, the defending player must first deploy them into the building zones. If over 4 buildings are on a province, the player may choose which buildings to place in the building zones. However, if the defending player loses the battle, all buildings, including those not placed on the battle map, are considered to be destroyed. Buildings that are considered to be under construction on the world map are treated as fully constructed on the battle map in terms of garrisoning and attack and defense values. To deploy a unit, a player takes a unit card and places it in one of the zones. The unit must be facing forward toward the enemy. Only one unit may occupy a single zone at a time. During the first deployment phase of a battle, each player must deploy at least one unit, but players are never required to deploy all their units. Any units a player chooses not to deploy remain in what is known as the reserve hand, and may be deployed later on. A player may deploy units in the front zones or rear zones freely, but in order to deploy units in the front and rear flank zones, units must first occupy all front and rear zones. For example, the attacking player wishes to deploy a unit in one of the left front flank zones. In order to do this, the player must have a unit deployed in all 4 of the front zones and all 4 of the rear zones before the unit can be placed in the flank zone. Units may be deployed or move into buildings. This is known as garrisoning. When a card is garrisoned in a building, the unit may not receive any damage until the building is destroyed. However, if a building garrisoning a unit is destroyed, the unit is instantly destroyed due to the building collapsing. To garrison a unit in a building, either place the unit in the building during the deployment phase, or simply move the unit into the building during the maneuver phase. Each building only has the capacity to garrison 1 unit. After the deployment phase, both players move on to the maneuver phase. During the maneuver phase, each player may move their units. Just like the deployment phase, the attacking player moves units first, followed by the defending player. Units may initiate their maneuver action in a variety of ways, and may move forward, to the left, or to the right, but not backwards. The only way to move in the reverse is to initiate a turnaround action, and then the next maneuver phase, move in that direction. To initiate a turnaround action, a unit is rotated 180 degrees so that it is facing the opposite direction. Some units with the evasive ability may move diagonally in addition to their regular movements, and each unit may only initiate one movement action per turn unless otherwise stated. Each unit card has a green arrow symbol showing how it may move on the battle map. For example, the Thal Warband card has a green symbol pointing forward, left, and right next to the running man symbol. This means that it may move forward, left, right, and initiate a turnaround action on the battle map. The maneuver phase is the most tactical phase of the game, and is where battles are either won or lost. Players may perform tactics like flanking to turn the tide of the battle in their favor. If a unit is being attacked from the rear, either by a melee attack or a ranged attack, then its defense value is reduced to 1, and it is considered to be getting flanked. After the maneuver phase is the combat phase. Combat during the combat phase is always done simultaneously, meaning each player deals damage with their units at the same time. The attacker applies all damage tokens first, and then the defender may apply theirs. After each player applies damage tokens, the damage goes through and destroyed units are placed in the dead zone or afterlife zone unless stated otherwise. There are two types of damage, melee damage and ranged damage. Most units may engage in melee combat using their melee attack value. Units that are in adjacent zones may engage in melee combat with each other. Units with the reach ability may also attack diagonally. Some units have ranged capabilities. These units may engage in combat from a distance using their ranged attack values. Most ranged units may target a unit 2 zones away from them. Damage carries over into subsequent turns, and units that survive the combat phase but receive damage retain their damage tokens until they are either destroyed or the battle is concluded. Units are considered destroyed when their defense value reaches 0. Destroyed units are then placed in the dead zone. Multiple units may attack the same unit during a single combat phase as long as they are in range of each other. Buildings also play a role on the battle map and are destroyed and damaged the same way units are. However, buildings cannot be destroyed by ranged attacks unless a card says otherwise. Some buildings may even have attack values that allow them to deal damage during the combat phase. Most buildings with an attack value may conduct ranged attacks such as guard towers and birds' nests. Buildings with ranged attack values also have a wide targeting radius and may target units in the front, rear, front flank, and rear flank zones. Just like movement symbols, each card has an attack symbol defining how they attack on the battle map. This is represented by a sword icon. If there is no symbol, then the unit may not attack. The same is true for cards with ranged capabilities, and this is represented by a bow and arrow icon. If there is no symbol, the unit has no ranged attack. In this example, the siege elephant has a red arrow symbol, indicating that it may melee attack left, right, forward, and has the reach ability, allowing it to also attack forward diagonally. It also has a yellow arrow symbol, indicating that it may use a ranged attack up to 2 spaces away. As a result, the siege elephant may attack either of the Thal warbands. It is important to note that unit cards may either initiate a melee attack or a ranged attack, but never both on the same phase. By the end of the combat phase, all units that were destroyed during that combat are placed in any order in the dead zone, on top of the previously destroyed units. The end phase is the last phase before the cycle repeats. During this phase, specific card abilities may activate. For more detailed rules as well as technology trees, description of game modes, lists of card types, and abilities, please consult the rules booklet included in the game.